Okay, good night, everyone, and welcome to the Uncomfortable Conversation. Tonight's conversation is a continuation from 2 weeks ago on mental health. So Chris Brown is here tonight, and she's going to continue from when Nadine left off. So welcome and thank you.
Hi, everybody. I feel like I'm hiding in a closet somewhere, although I'm not. I am not. So yep, guys, I wanted to continue off from where Nadine had left 2 weeks ago when we were talking about financial, how our finances affect our mental health, and kind of go a little bit more into mental health, just having an understanding of it, uh, how it presents itself in our everyday life, or even if we like, just how we define mental health to be. So I did a little slideshow. I wanted to take some of Nadine's definitions that she did, but I have this thing that starts with the A and ends with the D. And it kind of includes some procrastination as a symptom. And so I didn't do it. So I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. I didn't do it. But if there was some symptoms, one of the symptoms that I remember um, that stuck out to me was hypervigilance, and how hypervigilance shows itself and presents itself in our everyday life. So first, I just wanted to go, I guess, and just show you guys the slideshow. So I'm not really that familiar with Zoom. I really do like Google Meets, but I'm gonna try and give it my all. Okay. So if y'all just wanna have some patience with me while I do that, if that's okay with you guys. And one thing I also want to know, if there's anything, I guess, from last week also that stuck out to you guys. One of the things, another thing I do want to show is and I guess I'll send it to Bev, was to send like a little YouTube clip, and it was just about positive thinking. Like, how do we maintain or even obtain just remaining as positive as we can? And there is a such thing as toxic positivity, like just too much positivity. But we'll talk about that one a little bit later. Okay. So I am going, I guess my screen is already being shared. Thank you, Bev. I didn't realize that. And so I'm just gonna go and start really quick. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear
Yes,
you.
You guys can
but we
hear me?
don't see anything.
If
You
you're
see
sharing the
anything?
screen, we can't see it.
You can't see it?
No.
Okay. So let me come back in here and see if I am sharing the screen. Because I don't even know. Let me see, guys. Give me a second. Okay. So let me see. What can you guys see? Just me? My pretty face?
A screen.
Oh, just your own screen?
The Zoom screen with everyone on it.
Really? Okay. So let me come out of here. Because all I see, Beth, is just you. I don't even see anyone else.
Yours is probably set to only see the speaker.
Okay, there we go. Okay. So that you want to share my mental health presentation. Okay. Okay. Can you guys see
Yes,
anything now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So from the beginning. Oh, look, I did something. Okay. Do you guys see this little bar at the top? Okay, maybe it's just me. So this is the definition of, according to the World Health Organization, the definition of mental health. Okay, which is all basically our overall health, our physical well-being, our mental well-being, and our social well-being. I didn't know before I became like a mental health practitioner. I didn't know that. I always assumed mental health coincided with mental illness. That's just what I always thought, that mental health and mental illness was basically the same thing. Like, oh, I got to care for my mental health, or mental health was just one box, basically our care over our mind, our thoughts. I didn't know like it included social well-being and physical well-being. So This is something that I've learned, and just wanted to clear up for everyone else if you guys thought, or if anyone ever thought that mental health was just our mental health, our mind health, and not our physical and our social well-being. Okay. This right here, I'm not going to go to that one really. What I wanted to also talk about was how mental health, or just how it presents itself. And I wanted to really kind of go through gender roles, like how we look at it based on gender and also based on culture. So this one, I just really wanted to go on how females and males respond to emotional triggers. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I didn't know if someone was saying.
I can hear you.
Okay. So this one was just like how men and women respond. Women are more likely to respond with depression and anger. Men are more likely to respond with anger. If you guys both look at this, looking at both of them, anger is accompanied by fear, guilt, and shame with women. Feeling bad, I should never reacted like that. I should have thought about that. Why did she act like that? Why was she so over emotional? Men just anger, and everyone should just understand. Women are more likely to blame themselves. Men are more likely to blame others. These are generalizations. These are just what people have. This is just what have been seen. This may not have be an individual. Okay. For women, depression and guilt may lead to more self-destructive behaviors, such as what Nadine had brought up 2 weeks ago, such as over shopping or shopping too much, like myself, or hoarding in shopping, like myself. And also may not avoiding our bills, or avoiding things, like myself, or even just running away. And so for men, they may have just, again, anger outbursts, either property or violent crime, because these are what these gender roles or men are socialized to believe. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to one of the other things was, I'm sorry, let me go back to slideshow from the beginning. Our responses, our trigger responses. So we also heard that our trauma or trigger responses are usually, responses are based off of what we've learned or what we experienced early in our life. Okay. This is a table that myself and one of my interns had created together. And I wanted to kind of present it to you guys on how we would, just general of how people would react to different situations, what we could do. Okay. And how these different things can bring up different responses. And so basically, our responses are the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fawn is a whole new one. That is something very new. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of it. I've learned about it in the past 2 years just as a practitioner, but it is something that really a lot of women do all the time. So I'm kind of going to pause right here and ask any of you if you guys ever heard of the fawn response or any of these responses: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Have you guys heard of any of these responses, or recognize yourself even doing any of these responses, or even know what they are? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Has anyone ever heard of any of these?
I haven't heard
Fight
of
or
it.
flight.
Any of the F words? And
Yeah.
maybe you use the F words. Maybe you didn't have any Fs to give anybody, and that is okay. Maybe you didn't have any Fs, which is one of these, to give anyone or situation. So go ahead. Go ahead. Whoever wants to go ahead and speak.
Flight or fight, and that comes from just that comes from being a kid, as far as me and a lot of males, just where we grew up, and you either had to defend or you run.
You run. So that you said the fight, or the fight and the flight?
Yeah, there was sometimes that joke is kind of big, so we get it. And it'll be something silly, not a neighborhood territorial thing, but from sports or something, or just street ball and somebody hit you too hard, they did something, and then one thing leads to another. You get up, you huff and puff and face, and then that's where I learned that fight or flight.
The fight or flight, right? So those are good examples, and of when you were younger. Have you noticed how they may show up, or do you think they show up, present themselves to you as when you're older? Have you ever noticed that when you're older?
Well, as I've gotten taller and heavier, and little body shape to it, but it became that to be a protector, because if I was known to be a certain way, my mother, grandmother, I go home to hear about it, I'll get in trouble. So I had to learn to be rational. What am I going to get physical about, unless I'm being provoked or jump, something like that. That things that happened in the 70s, 80s kind of didn't matter. But now, me up to somewhere in my 30s now and into the 50s, I will address it. And that's not really happening to be provoked, because I do get provoked. But the fight or flight, I know when there's a time, if I have to protect my kids or something from some nonsense, but from another guy or group of guys, you can kind of tell.
Okay. So all of these responses are, thank you for one thing, Michael, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. All of these responses that we have that are shown here are, these are trauma responses, right? So Michael, what you did was you explained that the examples you gave were more like physical.
Give me water, please.
Oh, wait a minute, Ms. Bernadette, you gotta reach your you muted you for you. Our physical responses. What happens when we're older and we experience a situation that brings us to an uncomfortable feeling that we may not even recognize was we first experienced when we were young, or we have learned it by watching the people who took care of us, who also learned it from the people who took care of them, or maybe didn't. We show these or present these different responses because our bodies get triggered. We get anxious, just like what you were saying, Michael. Like, when you have to go into protective mode, or these are different things you've done when you were younger. So one of the things for me is that I freeze and I flight, and sometimes I do all of them. I freeze, I flight, I may fight, and I definitely fawn, which I'm learning not to do. So for everyone who don't know, fawning is a response when we just automatically say yes, even if we don't mean it. We automatically say yes, we automatically give in, because especially if we've been taught to take care and be nurturers, that we automatically just do. And we don't know how to really say no, because we are triggered to make sure that we're uncomfortable with making other people uncomfortable. We don't know how to make other people or allow other people to be uncomfortable. So it's almost like we anticipate their discomfort, so we automatically say yes before anticipating their discomfort. Does that make sense? So if that's for the people who, if you have a friend, it's usually something a lot of women would do, but men do it too. To automatically just do or give. You may have someone who do or give and don't know how to say no, because they don't know how to be in an uncomfortable situation. I don't know how to do that. So people look at me, just stop doing that. Just stop giving. Just stop taking care of it. Stop doing that. You don't know how to, because you were taught or shown that you're supposed to always take care of, so you don't know how to do it. And those people will lash out. Freezing is just shutting down. You just shut down. You put a wall up. If you get into an argument or a fight with someone, or even if you notice that people at work may have an attitude over something and now they're not speaking, you say hello to someone, good morning, Betty. And Betty just rolled her eyes and kept it walking. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with Betty? And then someone else comes, well, Betty was mad because you said something last week in the coffee room and she didn't like that. And, and you're like, dang, we grown women. Betty could have just came to me and said something. But Betty don't know how. So she just either freeze and she runs away. She internalizes it. So that is a symptom of how it shows itself as an adult. She freeze or I freeze, put up a guard. Betty may freeze and run away, flight. She don't want to talk about it. She's avoiding you. Flight is also going back to what Nadine said about avoiding the bills, which is, and I may do too. Avoiding looking at those bills. You flight, you run away because just thinking about it, looking at it gives you an uncomfortable feeling. I don't want to face it. I don't want to have to face something I have to be accountable for. Going back to that discomfort, that anxious feeling I get. So I'll run away from it. I'll run away from, opening the bill. I'll run away from, like Betty, having that discussion. I ain't gonna have this discussion. I'm just gonna put this wall up and not speak to you. Fight are the people who always got to defend themselves. They always got to defend themselves in an argument. They always got to have the last word. They always always talking or always being defiant in different ways. And defiance don't just have to be, fighting. It can be being petty or passive aggressive. Someone who I can't even think of a passive aggressive thing to do. And I know I've done petty passive aggressive things to do. I get mad about something and I get mad if I get mad at a family member or a friend and I just block them because I just block you and instead of me, but just could definitely be flight too. But fight, that could be a defiance in me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to do something else. So I'm going to, start something with another person and have them, now alter the relationship or have them mad at you because I'm mad at you, which is a form of fighting as well. It's a form of defiance. So these are how all these different responses show themselves as adults. These are just, again, how they show themselves as adults. Okay. Does anyone have any questions, any comments? Maybe you've done these things. Maybe you know someone who's done these things. Maybe you haven't done these things at all.
I have a
I have a cool.
question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Nadine, and then Mike.
Yeah, so when I learned about it, the first three, I was told that, at least with the fight one, the hormone that's produced is adrenaline. So is it the same for flight? And does freeze have some type of hormone like serotonin or dopamine? Do you
All of
know?
them, all of them are caused allegedly by adrenaline, which is cortisol. Cortisol is the hormone that causes the increase in that rush, that adrenaline rush, that feeling that you have. So all of them is the increase of the cortisol hormone. Our bodies are always anticipating something to happen, anticipating a danger, a discomfort, and so to ease our discomfort, what we'll do is we'll find different usually certain coping mechanisms. But that is they all are affected by the hormone cortisol, which is basically that rush hormone, the adrenaline rush that give you that extra push because your body anticipates a danger.
But how what about freeze? You're not moving with freeze.
But you're not freeze, but you have to take energy to shut down. So even if you're not moving, you still need to take the energy to shut down. You still need to take that energy, that feeling to your body is anticipating. So you may be thinking about a physical freeze. You may be thinking about the physical, I'm just not saying anything, which still is, a form of it still takes energy just to do that, just to get into that mode. Your body's anticipating a danger. But freeze can also just be shutting down. It can just be not speaking to people. It can be, someone does something and you're in your head, you're in your body may, don't even know how to respond. Um, you still need energy. Your mind is going. Like your mind, even though you physically aren't showing anything, you're physically not doing anything, just thinking about things, just sitting in that still requires a lot of energy. It requires a lot of energy just to sit in thought. So just to shut down your body and shut down yourself takes that energy. It still is an anxiety feeling. And you may see that with people. You may see that in people who just like, there's an argument and then for the rest of the day, they're not saying anything. They're not doing anything. You're like, or even for days, they're not, they're withdrawing from you or they're just withdrawing from activities. That still takes a lot of energy. That's a bit of flight and fight. I mean, freeze and fight. You just will kind of just shut down and withdraw. I don't want to talk to you. You're like, dang, you still don't want to talk to me? I thought that was like 2 days ago. But that still takes energy. You look at people who are walking around all doggone day with an attitude. That takes a lot of energy.
Yes,
To
it
walk
does.
around mad as hell all day. That is a lot of energy to do that. Go ahead, Michael. Did you want to say something?
My question is, what would it be for the male when you are growing up, not to hit girls, not to hit ladies, and you are attacked, and you just have to be on the defense, knowing what you can do? What F would that be?
That would be a freeze if you choose to. That you can do too. You can do all of them. You can freeze, which you could just shut down and allow yourself to get hit in the physical sense. You can freeze, you can flight and withdraw yourself from this person. You can fight back in the sense where you can physically, have an altercation, or you can do another form of fight. You can call someone, which is a form of fighting too, because now your defenses, but your defenses are not at that person directly. You know what I'm saying? And you can fawn and you can give in. Listen, girl, whatever you want, whatever. I'm not gonna go with you. Right, you're right. You were right. Sure. I don't want to go back and forth with you. You are right. Here's my wallet. You are right. Take it, girl. Do what you gotta do. You right. You know what I'm saying? You can fawn.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So that's how all of these things will manifest itself, will show itself in different ways. Okay. Anyone else have
When you was talking about passive aggressive, isn't sarcasm a form of passive aggressiveness?
Absolutely, sarcasm can be a form of passive aggressiveness. That can be
Good at that.
that can be a form of fighting. You know what I'm saying? And fighting is a form of defiance. So fighting doesn't have to be the physical, what we expect, the physical act of it. Fighting can be any form of defiance. I just realized a couple months ago that I was a certain type of fighter and I was very defiant. I mean, you could have knocked me over with a feather because I really didn't know that. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm so defiant. Like if somebody tells me something, I am like, heels in the ground. No, I'm not doing it. No, I don't care. No. So, but okay, whatever. And usually I was a person who like, would go with it, but I get so mad when I'm pushed to do something that makes me uncomfortable that I don't really want to do. I mean, I'll do it, but it makes me so mad that I didn't realize how defiant I was. I always thought I was, cool as a cucumber, but I finally had to accept that I was definitely not.
Right, but
that I was much defiant.
isn't that like from childhood? Because you look at children now, that when you ask them to do something and they don't want to do it, they throw a tantrum.
They do. They do.
Right. So,
But
and no matter what, they will not do it. I know some, that we call it in our days stubborn, being stubborn, but basically it's defiant at a young age because they're 3, 4 years old. And I don't care. You can hit them, whatever you do to them, they will not do what
that is
you ask
a
them to
form,
do.
right? And that is a form of that is a form of fighting. That's a form of fighting and freezing. And it is a form of defiance. Absolutely. Absolutely that. And you have to think about it. You or us, or a lot of us may have been that way when we were younger too. We may have, and times being different than they were, you couldn't have been that way that long because you almost got killed. And so you couldn't have been that way that
Absolutely.
long, and so you learned how to cope with that and how to deal with that as you get older. For me, my mother is on here. For me, it's like meeting women now or dealing with women who can be real attitudinal or very demanding. It used to trigger me. It would trigger me where I would either shut down, which would freeze, um, or I would become very defiant. And I didn't realize how triggered I was by very demanding women or demanding people, especially demanding women, just very demanding, very attitudinal. I needed this done today, like what the, and I would just stop and it would just trigger me. And so I recognize now like how it affects me now, like how, and like learning how to, I would become very defiant. I would become very defiant, very emotional. And so I learned how to calm myself down so I'm not that way. I'm recognizing how I respond. So really a lot of our trigger responses are caused by that cortisol, like Nadine has said, which causes the adrenaline, which makes us respond in a certain way. And what happens is when we respond and we're not recognizing it at the moment, when we don't recognize it, that's how we react in a certain way. We react rather than being able to respond. So when Betty walking around there with that attitude and we looking at her because she's mad about something I said to her in the coffee room the other day, the break room, and she's still upset, and she's holding on to it, it's because it triggers her back to something she learned and she saw from her early caregivers from when she was young. And maybe they told her, just let it go. You being extra sensitive. Maybe they told her something, and now that she's older, because she wasn't able to really understand and be allowed to process her feelings as a little kid. Now Betty walking around here heavy with this attitude with her wall up, mad at the world, still got an attitude 2 or 3 days later over something I said in a coffee room. I don't know. Maybe I said something about her pants. I don't know what Betty's still mad about. I'm gonna have to go and talk to Tammy because I don't know what Betty. No, I'm gonna go and approach Betty because you know what? I'm gonna be a grown woman and go and approach her. But her still walking around with that, it takes a lot of energy. That's something she learned from being young, from anything as of telling, Betty, stop complaining about stuff. You still mad about that? Da-da-da-da-da. Whatever Betty did, that's causing her now to react the way she is.
But isn't that like a lot of people that it's a silent treatment?
Yes, it is the silent treatment, but the silent treatment goes back to one of these trauma responses. So instead of dealing with the uncomfortable, sometimes what you'll get is a lot of people who say, well, they should have just known how I felt, because I'm so uncomfortable with dealing with my own emotions that I'm now putting that responsibility on others because I'm so overwhelmed by them. Because that feeling that I need to be 2 steps ahead, that I need to be, that feeling that brings me back to when I was younger, that very heavy, anxious feeling that told me that something was wrong, overwhelms me so much that I can't accept accountability for it. Now I have to blame it on other people. So now instead of Betty just saying, you know what, your behavior to or the words you said to me caused me to get, it caused me to, it brought me back to a time I was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable with me. I'm gonna say, you made me like this. You made me walk around with an attitude from what you said the other day in the coffee room. And you know what you said, and you said it, and you made me like this. And it's like, no.
So in that case, does Betty expect, like a lot of people, that person to be a mind reader? It's same thing like relationship, right? You get up, you have an attitude with someone, and you expect them to know why you have an attitude. They don't know unless you present it to them.
Right, right. And that's what it's a lot of people, especially a lot of people of color, because we weren't taught or allowed or shown how to really express and be comfortable with our emotions, especially our uncomfortable emotions. We weren't taught to be able to stand up and say what we need to say because we weren't taught that, and the people who could have taught us that, they didn't know to teach us that either. So
Right? You can't teach what you don't know.
you can't teach it. And
But
so now it's
some of that behavior seems like it's misdirected.
absolutely, absolutely. But it all goes back to being in an uncomfortable. I'm feeling uncomfortable because I feel uncomfortable or overwhelmed with my discomfort or not even knowing where it comes from. I can't take accountability. I'm going to blame it on someone else outside of me because I don't even know where this if I'm not familiar or aware of my own mental health, going back to my social, my emotional, and my physical health and well-being, how will I know? How will I
Yeah,
know?
absolutely, that's true.
How will I know? So again, we went back to back to sex differences and emotional responses. Another one of the things I want to say about males, and this goes back to both male and females, is that males, when it comes to people of color, when it comes to people of color, and I hear this a lot when people say, 'cause we're from Caribbean background, or I think this is something that happens that I noticed that happens all through the African diaspora. So if your ancestors came from anywhere in Africa, if you were born here, if your ancestors were born here, in any part of any place that that experienced any colonization or anything like that, we all have been affected. We all have been affected. And one of the things that we do is, because our parents and our families had to survive, and also had to they had to survive, and they always had to be hyper vigilant, 2 or 3 steps ahead, to make sure that their children are okay. We were this term called adultify at very young ages, right? Does anyone ever heard of that word before? Adultify.
Sure.
I would think
Yes.
that.
You
Go
heard
ahead,
of it?
Nadine.
I guess it's just taking the traits of a child, even though they're adolescents, but just seeing them and making them do adult things, or viewing them as adults, even though they're, prematurely not even at that mindset yet.
Absolutely. And so what happens is that we as people, we all, a lot of us, again, going back to diaspora, soon as we were able to get out of diapers, we were expected. I don't know. I'm gonna say maybe, you were expected to do certain things. Soon as you were able to get out of diapers and you could speak clearly and you can use that potty good, you were expected to do a lot. You
But
were expected to know and do, because our families and our ancestors were in survival mode. I ain't gonna have no time to, I'm gonna show you this one time, or you better do this and that. You should just know this and this and that. And so what happens is, because these were the expectations, and there was, and we just were on survival and living mode, and not really being able to understand our emotions, we go back into these emotional responses, especially men will go back into anger, because it seems like that is one of the only, if you don't know how to process your emotions or even understand them or be aware, the only thing you know how to do is hold them in, internalize them, and then you blow up. And that's almost like that should just be expected. Then you blow up, and that happens a lot for men. They blow up. It's almost like this, this thing that men should just know. And even sometimes, even in relationships, when I have certain clients, and they would say, he should just know this. He should just know that. He should just know. You mean he got feelings? And it's, you know, women will put, this is just when I have my clients, will put their men on certain pedestals. And it's like, well, you didn't think that he felt insecure about this and that. He felt insecure. What did he feel insecure? I had one person I was supervising, and she told a client was coming to her for depression, male police officer. He seemed like he was, he was a very well-to-do, man, I guess. But he came to her because he was depressed, and she said, "Why are you depressed?" Almost like insulting and judgment. Why are you depressed? What do you have to be depressed about? Like, I'm confused. Why are you depressed? You're a man. Like, you're a man with a good job and family. Like, I'm confused. Why are you depressed? And needless to say, he never came back. Um, he never came back. And what happens is that, one, it took a lot for him to come and say that, you know. And two, what happens is that a lot of us have this ingrained idea that men are lacking in emotions, or they should just be the know-all. They should just be able to figure things out. They should just be able to figure the world out and figure their partners out, whoever that is. And it's like, they're human as well. But then there's also this expectation of women. Women, they'll take care of it because, of course, we're all, a lot of us are always thinking two steps ahead, and we do need to take care of it. But it's like some of us can't be considerate of others, women, because we just see them as these people who do. We see them as, we don't even think that they sometimes have emotions or, have discomfort, because we just expected, or we've been taught that they'll take care of it.
Right,
Does that
that's
make
true.
sense?
So back to what you're saying about, it's kind of like the oldest child, right, has to take care of, do all the chores in the house and look after the youngest sibling. And a lot of them grow up with the anger. I even hear women say, I don't have no kids because I had to take care of my brothers and sisters. So it become an anger also towards the siblings, because you were, before your time, had to take care, be their parent.
Right.
So you're angry.
You're
It's like,
angry, but that's true. Your anger, yes, it shows itself in so many different ways. Your anger can show yourself outwardly to other people. You can have anger to yourself. A lot of people don't know you can have anger, defiance, and fighting to yourself, rather than even it shows itself on the outside. This
right.
is quote. Mhm. Go ahead,
It's
sir.
kind of like being a yes person.
That
Everything
goes back to
someone
the.
asks you to do, yes, yes, yes. But then you get angry at yourself for doing it, but you're more angry for saying yes, instead of just, putting yourself in position and say, I'm sorry, I cannot do this. Instead, you angry at yourself and you angry at the person for doing it.
Right. Because you don't even know how to say no. It wasn't even a thing in your body. You've been raised and you saw other people, women, men, caregivers in your life who've always said no. Yes, that you and they don't know how to say no. It's a way, going back to that, increasing that cortisol, which increases our adrenaline, that makes us, and goes into a nervous feeling. And so to get rid of that anxious, nervous feeling, that discomfort that is getting us into that's saying that our body and our mind is saying that we are being in danger, although we're not. you know Saying no is almost like putting myself in danger. How do I even do that? So to get out of that just uncomfortable feeling, sure, Beth, sure,
But
sure.
that's right. But that's also to make people like you. Like, that's how I see a yes person, because you don't want to make people feel bad. Everything is yes, yes, yes. If I say yes, you're gonna like me more. If I say yes, you're gonna want to be around me.
If I say yes, I'm not going to feel the uncomfortable feeling of being rejected or neglected or abandoned. Absolutely. I'm not going to feel that uncomfortable feeling that takes me back to feeling neglected, abandoned, or rejected. So because my body feels like I'm going to be in danger, and I don't want to go back to that feeling of that I experienced as a young person, or I saw other people experience. I'm going to just say yes. But I didn't even realize that. I didn't know that I was even doing that. I didn't know. I didn't know. So what we will see on the outside, we'll see a person, that is, she just a yes person. She just want everybody to, and it's true. She do, or he do, except for Betty. Betty just be mad. She just, but that person that say yes to everything, yeah, that person that is that people person because they don't want to go back to their true deep down feelings. So go ahead.
That's also psychological, because it all has to do with growing up. Because there's some children, I mean, and just from me attending some case study that see that you do it start off with your parents, right? You have that kid that really just don't feel loved or just feel not, that the parents favor the other one. So everything they ask you to do is yes, yes, yes. Oh, if I say yes to mommy, she's gonna love me more. If I say yes, and then it goes into your relationship. Yes to the man, yes to the man. And before you know it, you deplete yourself because you're so yes into everybody else. So you're so busy pleasing them that you leave yourself out.
Absolutely. And you know what? And the thing is that it goes to both, men, women, anyone on different, gender identities, how they choose to identify them or what they feel is right for them to identify themselves. It goes for any of them. It goes back to gender. We may not even realize that, yes, we see more women do it, but it's definitely something that happens in the for men as well. It's definitely something that happens for men as well. Men who always have to say yes to either, their mom or a certain girlfriend or, the people at work all the time. And you're like, what in the world? And again, we expect them to say no, but they don't know how. It's really a thing. You don't know how. You don't know how. Um, so this is what I wanted to really kind of separate with mental illness and mental health. I really wanted to make sure that I separate, that there was clarity on them, because I think that sometimes, and I could be wrong, people will associate mental health and mental illness together. Again, mental health is basically our overall social, emotional, and physical well-being. Those incorporate all of our mental health. Our mental illness are health conditions that are here involving change in emotion, thinking, or behavior. Um, and these illnesses can be associated with distress, problems functioning in social work or family activities. Mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of. It is a medical problem like heart disease or diabetes, and it is. Um, and what happens again is, I just really wanted to talk about the distress that you will feel. It's the distress, the uncomfortable feeling when we have those going back to the fight, flight, fawn, freeze responses. Our body is anticipating distress. Our body and our mind is anticipating distress, although there's no severe imminent danger happening, but that's what our body is feeling at that time. And that's why we respond the way we do. That's why Betty's still walking around here 2 days later with that damn attitude, because she is still anticipating an uncomfortable or distressful situation. Um, Misconceptions about mental illness. um I really wanted to make sure that this, to put up this will, that mental illness is a mindset problem. I was a person years ago, before I really fully became a clinician or even went into this field at all. I was a person who thought that depression was something you just kind of get over and change your mindset. You just change it. You just make yourself feel better. Like, that's a thing. I identified depression just with sadness. I didn't understand. Um, and I was so ignorant. I had someone who is very, very close to me, now, who suffers from an illness, and I wasn't even in my 30s yet. And I would tell them to just feel better. Like, I was that person. Just feel better. Just try to change your mindset. I didn't understand the severity. I didn't understand, I wasn't really helping and supporting them. What I was doing that I didn't know, that I was adding a lot of shame to them because I wasn't separating it from something that they needed help outside of themselves to take care of. It was almost like you should just be able to take care of it. So that was mental illness as a mindset. I'm going to see if I can Mental health only concerns sick people. That's not true. Mental illness can be cured by food and fitness. Um, Mental health can be, what's that, mental illness or mental health? Let's get back to that
Illness.
part of this stuff. Mental illness can be cured by food or fitness. Um, mental mental illness is like any illness. If you're predisposed to it, you can have it. Yes, food and fitness definitely plays a part. I'm not going to minimize that. Like food and fitness don't, because it definitely do. Exercise, especially weight resistant, and cardio. But weight resistant is a little bit longer. Helps you a little bit longer. Can help to minimize the symptoms of depression and anxiety. Um, yes, it can. And of course, eating nutritious foods. I don't know who sent this. This may have been from the pharmaceutical company, so I don't want to go down the pharmaceutical company rabbit hole. But food and fitness definitely can help, but you may definitely need more understanding. You definitely may need more psychotherapy or talk therapy to help you understand where that even come from, to help you understand your symptoms. And if you're predisposed, sometimes you may need it, depending on the severity of the mental illness, where you may have to go the medication route. You may have to go that far, So yes, food and fitness can definitely help to minimize the symptoms or to help you through that time. But there's so many varying types of treatment options that you can have, okay, including medication if you choose to, but there's so many different ones. Therapy traumatizes more than it is helpful. That is a stigma. That is a stigma. Therapy definitely, you will, if you already had a major traumas, you've already been traumatized. Like you've already been traumatized that brought you to the point to where you really can't function as much as you would like to, and so these are definitely misconceptions about therapy, that it will traumatize you more than it is helpful. It depends on your rapport with whoever your therapist is. Okay. But it definitely can be helpful to help you understand the symptoms, to help you understand your own traumas and what brought you to this point to where you are feeling or you experience this stressful event, or in your mind and in your body. People with mental illness are manipulative. Um, that is definitely a misconception. Um, Anybody can be manipulative. Anybody who wants what they want. And you don't have to have a mental illness to be that way, to be manipulative. Getting help for mental illness is easy, and it absolutely is not easy. It is not easy to get help for mental illness. To get exactly what you need, you have to go through your trials and tribulations, with finding the right persons to help you, and also finding the right persons to diagnose you, and however you choose to get treatment, and finding which treatment is good, can help you or not. So it's not fully easy. No, it's not hard, but it's not easy. And depending on the insurance you have, depending on insurance, or it will help you with your accessibility to receiving help. Medications for mental illness are dangerous. That is a misconception. There's a lot of people on medication and they're still alive. You know, anything can 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 have an effect on you. And again, it's finding the persons, the doctors who can treat you. They know what they're talking about. You trust them. People with mental illness want attention. That is totally a misconception. There's a lot of shame that goes with having a mental illness. There's a lot of shame that goes with, really acknowledging, or accepting that, or not accepting that you have a mental illness. And so, no, people usually want to hide or don't deny. More people are more talking about it and admitting it. Really, these young people are really, really admitting it more. There's less shame with the young people, and I'm really in awe of them because they are more open to discussing and admitting that something isn't right. People with mental illness are dangerous. Another misconception that we do hear about them on the news when someone who may have had a mental illness goes out and do something, severe, or the person with the mental illness is the one being killed, like the person on the train who had who was killed by the Marine. Was he in the Navy or the Marines? The person who was I don't know if you guys heard about that a while ago. He was strangled by someone because he was yelling, but the other passengers on the train said he really wasn't harmful. He just was yelling and screaming and making everyone uncomfortable. And then he was, strangled to death by, I guess, an ex-Marine. I'm not sure, but that was in the news a while ago. So these are the misconceptions. I don't know if you guys have any questions, comments, anything that you want to say or not say, or question or whatever.
I got one quick question.
Go ahead.
Did you mention anything about police? There's been a lot of circumstances with police, particularly with people of color, that have these issues and their mental issues.
Absolutely.
And I've noticed quite a few of them. And the police have a problem with that. And sometimes the people that they come to see have mental problems. And it really must be kind of difficult to figure out that type of mentality problem that these people have, unless they know it, So I don't know if you've addressed it before, but it's very interesting that we can have a mental problem and someone can call the police and the police come to aid, but they don't actually know what they're dealing with. So there's been some issues with that in the past couple of years. I keep up on that on the news and situations like that. What is your take on that, especially dealing with police with people with mental problems?
That's a thank you, Jay. That's a real good question. I think that what needs to happen, with one thing I've noticed that has happened, is there has to be a lot more education given to the officers dealing with mental illness, knowing what they look like. But the police are called to basically to diffuse a crisis, whatever that crisis is at the moment, right? They're there to make sure that to just kind of level it out, to make sure that whoever is in danger at that time is to make sure the danger is away, and how you're gonna kind of basically level out whatever that dangerous situation, and knowing how to deal with that and how to go to the extreme. And I think that what needs to happen is that there needs to be a lot more assessments, and a lot more assessments, and a lot more care that goes to people who work in the police departments, to make sure they're getting the education and the care that they need. My friend, she was a probation officer, my best friend, probation officer for the county, and she had to, help do not help, but she had to write up restraining orders. And on my business. Well, it wasn't until I had to go, and I'm looking like, dang, you ain't got no windows. And just hearing about the stories in and out, hearing about them, to where she became so depressed. And I said, you know what? They need to really make sure, this is like, you guys are getting a secondary trauma, having to hear about what this person did. This girl done ran it with her boyfriend and chopped and did stuff to his car and did stuff to him and did stuff to the kids, and he done did stuff back or whatever. You hearing these stuff day in and day out, and no one is making sure that you're going to someone to talk to them, to kind of, basically reset yourself, to make sure that you're taking off their own stuff and not incorporate it. And my best friend became extremely depressed because of that. So I hate to say this, I hate to be the one to say this, but I think that there needs to be a lot of care, a lot of sensitivity training but also a lot of services pushed on and maybe mandated by the police officers, who, so that they are aware of what these mental illnesses look like. And I think that there needs to be a lot of, if someone is being triggered and they're shown that they have either they have stigmas, or they are likely to not receive the treatment for their own mental illness, or their own, like, even impulsivity is a symptom of an illness. Being impulsive is a symptom. And if you are so impulsive and you're not managing it correctly, you probably need to be monitored, because you can be the person, like that young lady that went into somebody else's apartment down in Texas and killed that young man, because you just assume, has she been monitored? Have people paid attention to her? That you will go into someone else's apartment and shoot and kill them? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think that there needs to be a lot more care and assessment sensitivity trainings, but also, making sure that they are cared for as well, that they're able to really do the job.
Do you work, do you work with people in your field? Are you a psychologist, or what is your?
I'm a therapist. So I'm sorry, I didn't do my title. So yep, I'm Christine, licensed clinical social worker, and I'm also which basically is a clinical therapist.
A clinical therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Sorry about
So
that.
I was gonna say, do you come across a lot of people like you, clinical therapists or psychoanalysts or psychologists that feel, I mean, I kind of think you guys should get together, and from my aspect with this police situation, because you're right, I agree with you. They need other training for these issues. And people like you and people in your field need to push that,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
you have that expertise.
Right. That we definitely need to push it. It's so interesting, Jay, that you even brought that up, because one of the things when I was really, really more into I had a lot of I had a lot of it was Black officers that came to see me. Black officers that, came to see me now. One of them worked one of them worked in Milburn. I said, there's Black police officers in Milburn? Like, Milburn really got crime?
Yeah.
That was my own ignorance. Like, yes, they have crime. I was like, they do? How? When that happened? Like, I'm confused. They're like,
Yeah.
yes, we have crime. We have people break into stuff. He's like, you think just because and it was just even my own ignorance. He's like, you think because I'm not running around and chasing people and jumping over fences and about to lose my life, that I'm not doing my job? And I was like, no, I just didn't think there was crime in Milburn. I just didn't know. Like, I didn't know. Like, that was my own ignorance. And so, yes, there definitely needs to be a push for it. I think in more liberal areas or more diverse areas, that there probably is more, like, in Newark, they have more younger police officers, more police officers of color. They definitely ask, does this person have a history? Does this person not? It seems that their training is a lot, different. But I wonder, when you are going to another place that is not as diverse, or not as, have as many people of color as we do
Mm.
here. But I think it goes back to, you know, um, just how diverse or how liberal and how much power. But then you're going down, JJ, you're going down a certain rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You're going down a certain rabbit hole. You can't go all the way. If we were pushing certain things, if we going back to the food and nutrition, like this will, and I'm like, okay, where this will came from to a point. I mean, I put it there, so I shouldn't be judging the will that much. But like, food and nutrition is so important. And we see a rise. Like, it wasn't until like maybe the mid 90s or the early 90s where foods were becoming more genetically modified. So now you have foods that are becoming more genetically modified. You have these fast food restaurants popping up in more urban areas. You have the clean foods are out, and genetically modified is going into the organics now. And this is what, 30 something years ago. And now we're seeing this rise in, what we will call like neurodivergent, or in different illnesses, or even autism is a form of a neurodivergent, meaning that our
Mhm.
neurons aren't flickering like they're supposed to keep us stimulated. And you're hearing all of these things, and you're looking at it like, who's really, okay, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but really profiting. You know what I'm saying? Who's profiting from these different things, that that we can treat, or could have been treated, but now it's a little bit more difficult to treat because who has access to really, or availability to really cleaner food, you know what I'm saying? And more
Yeah,
education on that, you know?
yeah.
So it's a certain rabbit hole. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole with you, but
Okay,
but I do
so
think that needs to be a push, but it goes back to that. If they push that and we push more sensitivity, then what do we really need the police officers for? Where do we really need them to be?
okay, but the police officers, everything is intentional, right? They can shoot a Black person, mental illness. Do they do that to their own? They're sensitive when it comes to their own,
But
right?
but that goes back to another rabbit hole, because it goes back
Right.
to because it
That's what
goes
I'm
back to
saying.
where is it being, it goes back to the media, and it depends on which
You know
media.
what? I wouldn't, you know what? I wouldn't say the media. The media play a role now that we see what's going on. Imagine without social media, all the things that was going on that we didn't see or hear, but it was hidden.
Right, but now I'm
So
not
now
talking
they're
about.
exposed.
But I'm not talking, Bev. I'm not talking about social media. I'm talking about
But
the regular media. I'm talking about our major news corporations and systems, and that's what I'm talking about. Because of social media, we are being more aware of different things that we have no idea that was going on before. We there's a rise in things. George Floyd, it became a thing because someone recorded George Floyd on their phone. If
right,
you were waiting for CBS to really acknowledge that, that was going to be a blip in the news. Oh, young man was, what you call it, the investigation is going to be going on. If we listen to
correct.
CBS and ABC, but it was,
That's
young girl on her phone that recorded that, and thus we've got what we got from that. You know what I'm saying? So,
right, right. But they've been doing that from the beginning of time because I grew up and went to school in Summit, right? Dominantly others. I didn't know that till my later on in life that there was so much crime and corruption there because they always hide what they do and expose things when it comes to us, right?
right,
But the whole thing is that's all by design. Any of these things can be changed if they wanted to change. I have a lot of associates as police officers, right? What they're trained to shoot Black folks first. They're trained to give us the most ticket. They're trained to stop us more than other people. And it's happening, it's happening. And they are so bold now, it doesn't matter. They are still doing it. So, like you saying, JJ, how do we start preventing these things from happening? And you talk about a lot of states now supposedly supposed to implement that when you make that 911 call to any domestic violence, a social worker or a trained person supposed to go out with the officer. And when you think about it, are officers trained in mental health?
I don't know what state is implementing that, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm not going out with no police officer unless you pay me a whole lot of money, because I'm not going out to diffuse this crisis information. I will help train him, and I will help assist him, in the office. But you are the police officer, and I am the therapist to assist you. I'm not going out to be crisis intervention worker with you out there. You should be monitoring who you're hiring. But that's me.
But
That's me. That's
right, that's you. But
yeah.
I just feel like we have to monitor the monitor as Black people because
Hmm.
we're looking out for ourselves, our community. So we do have to monitor them because otherwise there's really no accountability.
Right. So okay.
But
I
aren't
think that but
police
I think but I
officers,
think but I think that goes back to who but that goes back to who's being voted in. But that's a whole nother thing. That goes
Yeah,
back
that's,
to
yeah.
who's being
But
voted in.
aren't there supposed to, like, I know a lot of psychiatrists and people in that field who deal with people and their situation. Aren't they supposed to have therapy themselves? So I'm just thinking, an officer's supposed to have therapy?
I think that they should have therapy. I think
You
that
would
a lot
think,
of,
right?
I think that they should have. I think a lot of people um, who work in those type of professions or work in any profession should. I think this should just be, you know, part of, and when, as I got older and started really into it, it should be part of, your whole health system, like going to get a physical. And now it is really, actually, it is more like now doctors are have to, and it's happened a couple years ago, well, they had to be trained in being able to mentally to provide mental assessments on their patients. They had to be trained. This started, I think, maybe about 20 something years ago that this was put into effect. And so you'll see that doctors will ask, some doctors don't care, but some doctors will, you know, have this happen to you? Have you been having any ideas of hurting yourself or hurting others? Have you, you know, and so with those things, you know, then the doctor can encourage you, unless you look like you're a harm to yourself or others, or they really feel that way. You know, they can encourage you to get the help that you need. But there are a lot of doctors who feel like, you know, um, mental illness or, you know, your mental health is a mindset problem. Get over it. You know, this is what you need to solve it. You know, and if you think about certain police officers and where they're placed in society, it's like, again, that these are people who should just know. They should just, you know, certain places put them on a pedestal. Certain people put them
Right.
on a pedestal.
I think they should be working in their own community. They should hire, because they hire officers, kind of like teachers. You come from the suburbs and you come in the inner city to teach. You have really no connection. But back to what you were saying about the food, that's how I feel right now about these cannabis stuff, right? I think it's going to be the detriment of Black people.
What, cannabis?
Well, look at, it's legal now, right? You could smoke.
Yeah.
I watch people come to work. You could smell it on them down the hallway. How are you functioning? Isn't it altering your state of mind?
I don't know, Bev. It sounds a little judgmental to me. I can't really. I am a
Okay,
supporter.
listen. Okay,
I
so
am a
listen to me.
supporter of
Okay,
it. Uh-huh.
okay.
So I, you know what? I am a supporter. But
Mm,
it goes back to because the one thing I feel about cannabis now, especially with it being legal, it's more legalized now
of course
because
it is,
you can
because who's
tax on
who?
it here in
Okay,
New
so
Jersey.
let's say who's benefiting from it?
The government. Who benefits from anything? Who benefits from us being sick? It's the
Exactly.
government. Who
And
benefits from our children not learning as
right.
much as they
How
need to?
many, right. So
The
you think
government.
about back in the days, how many these Black men and women that's been in jail for umpteen years, right? They didn't clear them all up before they start doing this. How many Black suppliers are they?
I don't know, but if I find one,
They can't even raise the funds to get
well, that's not necessarily true. There's
to
one
get
on
a
Halsey Street
license,
in Newark.
right? They're the
So
last because they make
that's black owned.
But
The way I
who
feel
has a
about
Black owned
cannabis,
one?
I
Who's
feel
Black?
like
Who owns one
there's
right
one on
now?
Halsey Street and there's a black owned. So
Well,
I don't think I'll tell you all my business now. Wait a minute. It's
hey, listen.
but I
Listen,
am
it's
a
legal.
big.
It's not personal.
It's
It's
not personal,
legalized,
but
so you can talk about it.
I'm a
But
big
let me tell you,
believer
I
in.
say that to say
Mhm.
there's a place and time. I don't think everybody should be able to use it as recreational, especially depending on the type of job that you have. You figure like that. And when you talk about police officer, their state of mind is already altered. Imagine smoking a couple of joints on top of it or sniffing it
So
or whatever they do with it, right?
right. So,
Like I
but I
said,
think that anyone who works with children definitely needs some, or one or two. Need a little something to help relax them working with kids. Um, I
Hey,
definitely think that should be considered. I got one kid, and
working with kids or have
I'm
kids, which
gonna get to
one?
the dispensary when I could. So I don't know. I'm not. But the one thing I feel about cannabis, this is how I feel about it now. I feel that one of the things is that cannabis definitely helps you, especially if you're a person who's very anxious. I've had clients, young clients, that even with their medication, their symptoms become so bad, even because medication does not make the illness go away.
No, it doesn't.
That's a thing. Medication, it helps to buffer the
Right.
symptoms
Mhm.
of the illness, but it does not make the illness go away. So even with medication, you may
So
have
is the cannabis gonna make it go away?
it helps
I'm
to
just playing
ease those
devil's
it helps
advocate.
to ease those symptoms without the high the severe or more serious side effects of the medications. Absolutely, it can definitely help to ease certain. So if you are a person who's anxious and oh my god, and if you're a person who works with children and too much, you love working with children, you love what you do, but too much stimulation, too much
Then
overwhelms,
maybe that's not the job for you.
or maybe that I can use this cannabis that's legal and go to work and deal with other people's children and teach them, and I'm feeling good about it. So maybe it is.
I'm staying out of this.
I'm just playing.
I'm
I'm
just
just playing devil's
I'm,
advocate here. I'm just,
yeah, no, you
and
playing it good. You playing it
I'm
good.
just seeing from. I'm speaking from the perspective of my observation from some of them who are using it.
Right. But you
Okay.
can have a person.
But then again, what example really and truly are we set as a recreational? What example are we really setting for these children? And I'm just saying, I'm just asking. Anybody can answer. I'm just curious.
that that there's
I'm a
very
boring person. I don't drink, smoke, or none of that stuff. So I'm just asking to know.
well, the one thing I'm gonna say is that it shows our children or people that there are so many different options which can be healthy and unhealthy to managing these symptoms. So you can, if you choose not to do, some people choose to do cannabis, some people choose to do cough syrup. Some people choose to shop, some people choose to be promiscuous. Some people choose to do anything to help deal with these uncomfortable feelings. Some people smoke Newport 100s. Some people got to go and get them their whiskey. So some people, it depends on which you choose, which is going to be your vice to help you with these stressful feelings. What will you choose?
Good answer.
Go to the
I wanted to
dispensary.
I wanted to take it
Okay.
one step back and add something to JJ's concern. So there is an alternative for police, but only within suicidal ideations. So instead of calling the police when somebody says they want to kill themselves, there's a 988 lifeline. It's like a hotline.
Right.
So the person is connected to a crisis counselor. They talk it out, try to talk the person off the ledge, and the police is not involved at all. But that's just for suicide. So I think, I don't know, correct me, Miss Chris, it's within the last 5 years they created this line. I
It's
know it's fairly new,
it is. It's
but
Yeah, no,
actually
yeah.
that's what you said?
I said,
I
yeah,
said, yeah.
it's fairly new, and I think it's really been popularized during COVID because of
Yeah.
course we saw an increase in these mental illness, especially around the young people during that time. Thank you,
Yeah.
Nadine.
Yeah, that's the only alternative that I know to calling the police with a mental illness.
Mhm.
Hmm. No, when I was going through that domestic violence training, those were some of the things that they talked about. That's why I was asking about it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many cities are beginning to implement it. I know New York was also talking about it. And anytime New York do something, New Jersey's right behind. I mean, I don't think it's such a bad thing because of all the things that happen. There's incidents. We need to do something about it. We don't, when somebody's having a crisis, we don't need a shotgun.
Right. But this also goes back to one of the symptoms, hypervigilance, always being 2 or 3 steps ahead, always want to make sure that we're looking out, and also for us to be adultified as young people, because we, just as people of color, have always had to be 2 and 3 steps to watch out for, any danger, whether it's in the workforce, whether it's walking in our community home, on our way home, whether it's just going to this, which is part of our community, traveling, whatever it is, we've always had to be on, you know, just we always have to be aware. We have to be alert. We always have to be 2 or 3 steps ahead. And so that is one of our reasons that we were put in places where anger is more of an expression than any other thing, because that's what we've been, you know, we've had to do to survive. And
Mhm.
why we experience these uncomfortable the other responses we do, the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, rather than acknowledging our own discomfort and distress. So I just want to, you know, to acknowledge that as well. And also piggyback from what Nadine said about our finances, because that's what we've been taught. That's another traumatic situation, you know, and we avoid the discomfort, that the stressful feelings that it brings on when we are not at our we don't have the best financial, you know, our finances are not at the most comfortable place we would like them to be.
Right.
There's a there's a there's a movie that I'd like to put out there for you to watch. And I think it's on Netflix. It's called Champions. I don't know if any one of you's heard of it, but Google it. It's called Champions, and it's about kids with mental disabilities on a
Oh.
basketball team. And Woody Harrelson is the coach. He got in some mischief, and he was told to coach these kids, and they all have mental disabilities. And if you manage to watch this movie, it's a very good movie, and it teaches you, like the lady was saying, that handicapped people or disabled people are people, and you treat them as so. And because they're handicapped or mentally disabled, you know, you can still get through to them. It just takes a special kind of person to do it.
Absolutely.
So, you know, that's something, you know, you might want to check that movie out. I watched it. It's really good, interesting movie.
Mhm.
It's called Champions. I think it
Champion?
just came
Okay.
out this year or last year.
Mm.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Jay.
last year.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, JJ.
Mhm.
But I want to make sure
Okay.
that and then I'm gonna like give you to bad that that JJ, going back to what you're saying, there's a different, well, you know, it's the titles have changed, that there's a difference between mentally ill and developmentally delayed,
Mhm.
you know, that part, like or even having a yeah, developmentally delayed and mental illness. Because a mental illness can come up anytime. Like you can be okay all your life, and then here you are, 45 years old, and now you just got diagnosed with bipolar. Like, what the hell? What? What?
Yeah, yeah.
Now I'm diagnosed with bipolar. How the hell
Okay.
did that happen?
So you said just diagnosed, but is it somewhere deep down that has not surfaced as yet? Building up?
You know what? That is somewhere deep down. Not it. This That's a good question. How it presents itself. So I will say diagnosis, because it may have showed itself throughout your life, and you may not have ever needed to get a diagnosis. You may have had other coping mechanisms to help you function, that it wasn't so that's why I say you may not have gotten diagnosed until then, because it may have shown itself in different ways. There are some people I can remember, so I'll do disclosure for myself. I'm diagnosed with having major depressive disorder. It's one of my diagnoses. um I would not have ever believed that, and I don't look like anyone who got major depressive disorder. I'll be feeling good. What are you talking about?
I
Um,
don't think we ever look like what
we don't look like the
we don't look like
diagnosis.
it,
Right.
right?
We don't look like the diagnosis. I wasn't diagnosed until like I was fully diagnosed into like my probably my early to late 30s. Um and but I can remember the feelings once I really did the work, the feelings that I experienced at 5 years old. I can remember my first depression feeling at 5 or 6 years old. I can remember once I really sat back and really thought about it. Like once I really did the work, like, oh, I can remember this. I didn't know that it was a thing. I didn't know. And so when it would reoccur, just like Betty, I blamed it on other people versus accepted it for myself because I did not think or know that that was a symptom, that same symptom I felt um, in my, now or a few years ago was something I felt when I was 5 or 6 years old. I didn't realize it until I really had to do the work with my own therapist or my own treatment. So again, how it presents itself. And for me, a lot of times it presented itself as anger outbursts, as attitudes. I was cheery, but then I was, mad and just having an attitude and lashing out. Impulsivity, um, uh, and of course hoarding and shopping because I needed something to make me feel good. I didn't know what that was. And everyone around me was a problem. Everyone, oh my God, this is getting on my nerves, rather than me accepting this is a symptom of my own depression. Oh, this is the depression. Oh, irritability is a symptom of depression. Oh, agitation is a symptom of depression. Oh, withdrawal is a symptom of it. Okay. Isolation is one. Having low self-worth, feeling hopeless, like, oh my God, this always happens to me. Nothing ever gets better. This is always something with me. I'm always a problem. There's always a problem in my life. That's a symptom of depression, but it was symptoms of depression.
Seems like nowadays everything is a symptoms of something, If you're stressed, it's mental illness. If you disagree, it's mental illness. So we just surrounded by all these things that I guess now being acknowledged or coming in the forefront because these are things that we didn't even think about back then.
No, we didn't. Because we were raised to be strong and magical and fairies and be able to deal with all that stuff. So we weren't given any humanity because we were magical and we can deal with everything. But now we are given humanity and we're humans and we have symptoms and, we are much more education and awareness than we ever had before.
Absolutely.
And I'm not a fairy. I'm just a human that is thankful that you guys allowed me to speak today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Awesome job. If everybody leave the contact information in the chat, so I can send you guys. Miss Brown, would you like to put your information in the event that anyone wants to contact you? They know how.
Sure. So let me go and find where I need to do that. Right here, it says chat right here. So I'm now one of those people. Now I am one of those people like, where you going? Figure out how you get there.
Trust me, I'm the same way. I meant to put a message in there and I have it in, I don't think it's direct message.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I don't even know how you switch back and forth.
So I'm Christine Brown. I'm providing therapy virtual now. And so I can be contacted at 862-279-4117.
What area are you located?
Where am I located?
Yeah.
So right now I'm located in Newark. I reside in Newark.
Okay.
But I'm practicing virtually now. I was practicing in Maplewood, but I'm practicing virtually.
Only virtually?
right now virtually till I get a
Good.
place, which I will get a place. I will get a place soon. I
Good.
will. But
Good.
it's in virtually at this
How many storms?
it's Norwich.
Mhm.
So and also I just want to give a shout out to my mama.
Hi, moms.
Shout out to my mama that's running that peeking her little eyeballs who found it to come. Thank you, mommy, for coming and supporting me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So I want to give a shout out to my mama and her little eyeballs. I see her. For all that she's done and all that she was able to give with all her own traumas that she's had, but to still be able to give to us a lot of her kids. When we were growing up, they always burns kids in the way. It's always burns kids because there was a lot of us. And so with all that she had and didn't have, she was still able to give us. So thank you, mommy. But yeah, I'm located in Newark, lifelong resident of Newark, New Jersey. But I'm right now practicing virtually until I have a spot, which I am looking for a spot. And listen, the spot is definitely coming. So I can definitely feel that because I do have a lot of people who really want to, but don't knock virtually. Virtual is not so bad. Virtual is not bad. The one thing I will tell people is it's about, building a rapport and really being honest. One of the bravest things you can do is be honest with yourself about what you received and didn't receive. Is one of the most bravest, hardest things to do, but one of the bravest things to do. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
You're
So,
right.
I just want to thank you all and thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I hope that I was able to help. And thank you, Bev and Nadine. Thank you, Bev and Nadine. Thank you.
Yeah, and I wanted
Anybody?
to promote Miss Chris, because people don't know our relationship. Miss Chris is actually my daughter's therapist, and my daughter has been through 5 therapists, and Miss Chris is the longest standing one. So she always meets her with energy, good vibes, happiness. And my daughter always walks out of her session smiling, even though she might go in a certain way. So I love Miss Chris. And when I was trying to do the financial presentation, I was like, who should I find? And I was like, let me see if Miss Chris was open. And I'm so glad that you came in and did a part 2 with everyone. But yes, if you need a therapist, she is the bomb. She is.
Thank you, Nadine. Thank you. Buttering my toast. Thank you. Thank you, Nadine. I love her daughter too.
Better
I do.
choice.
Thank you.
Chris, can you
Thank
stop
you.
sharing your screen for a minute?
Yes, I will.
Are you finished with this?
I'm
session?
done. I'm done.
Okay.
Yes, I'm done with that. Thank you, guys.
Okay,
Thank you,
great.
Nadine.
Anybody have any last questions or something they want clarified before we end? Some of us
Good to
have
see
work
everybody. Good to see everybody again
George is here.
after I haven't been here in half a year. Good to see Michael Royster hanging in there with me. I love you, brother. All right. Good to see I call her the boss of the queen, Beverly. She's our queen. Good to see her again.
Thank you. It's great to see
Nadine,
you.
good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you all. I have my other shout out to my other friend who's here, the model. Who came to support. So thank you.
That's great.
Thank you, George Taylor, for
Can't
coming.
wait till the next one.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you guys. And as usual, thank you guys very much. Next month, Black History Month. So Eric's going to be doing some education and we're going to be talking a lot about Black history. Okay, so all month long, that's the theme for February. They just gave us 28 days, but Black history is every day for us.
Yeah.
Get it
Had
healthy.
this country if we ain't have Black history.
You be ready.
Okay.
All right.
Again, thank you guys.
Thank you,
Until next
guys.
time. All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Good
Chris.
night.
Welcome.
All
Good
right.
night.